Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today for our class on designing a sustainable landscape. I've got John here with me, and I am going to welcome to the new participants that are joining us for the first time, and welcome back to our regular participants. We have about 66 people registered for today's class. So my name is Karen, and I am going to get started. I am going to go through some of the housekeeping slides, as I call them, just to let you know what today's class will be like and what you need to know to have a successful class for yourself. And then I will, when I'm done with that, I will turn it over to John, and then John will take over and start the class itself. So let's see. Okay, oops. There we go. All right, so this is a list of all of our classes for the rest of the year. As of now, we are going to be online. I do not know when we're going to go back to in-person classes or if we'll do both. So anyways, this is the schedule, once a month on a Saturday. And so today is designing a sustainable landscape. And then April is water-wise vegetable gardening. It goes on down through December. Each class is roughly an hour long for the an hour long, followed by the question and answer period. We are recording the classes, so every class is recorded. So you can go back next week and you can rewatch this class or any of our previous classes. They're available on our website. So let's see. So I have some handouts for you. And then we have the question and answer period. So to the right of your screen, you should see a red arrow. If you click on the red arrow, it'll open up a chat box. And the chat box is the ability for you to write questions for John that we will be answered at the end of the presentation. So as we're going through the class, if you have some questions, just type it in the chat box. And then at the end of the class, I'll open up the chat box and I'll read the questions back. And then John will answer them. The next item on this section is the handouts. We have handouts, copies of the handouts of the housekeeping slides, and then a copy of the handouts of the actual PowerPoint presentation for the class itself that you can save and read over later. So you can click into the handouts and you can download them onto your computer. If you don't want to do that, which is completely fine, you don't have to, obviously, at the bottom of this screen is my email address. It's kdenkinger, DENKINGER @scvwa.org. Email me anytime and I'll respond, whether it's about you want a copy of the handouts or you have a question or anything like that. But I will not be checking my email during the class. I will be checking it after the class is over. So if you want to reach out to me about anything, please do to that email address. And if you want the PowerPoint presentation, just send me an email and let me know and I'll send it right over to you after class. So here's just a couple of slides about us. This is who we are and shows our service area, the square miles, how many connections we have, the total population that we serve. And this is how to find us on the web. We have our website, which is scvwater.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and on YouTube, SCV Water on YouTube. We've got videos. Okay, now we have some rebates that'll help you save water and money. All of our rebates are on our site. It's conserve.yourscvwater.com is all of our rebates that will help you out. I'm going to go over a couple really quick with you. We have some landscape resources if you're looking for seeing what other people are doing in their yards, their hillsides, front yards, backyards. These are some resources that you can find. We've got SantaClaritaGardens.com and then yourscvwater.com/conservation tips. And this is a rebate that we have offered out today, just one that I'm highlighting today. It's the HELP program. It's healthy and efficient landscape programs. You can get a rebate of up to $750. It is upgrading your irrigation from drip irrigation, high efficiency nozzles, or a combination of both. You can get up to $750 back. All right, let me close that out. All right, so we're going to get started. I am going to mute myself. Oops. I'm going to mute myself and turn my camera off, so you'll just see John. You'll listen to him. He will go through all the slides. There's 32 slides. When you hear him say next, that's just him telling me to advance the slide. And then when all the slides are done, I'll come back in and we'll open up the question box and chat box, and I will read off all the questions. So here we go.
Hi, good morning, folks. So this is a multifaceted class. I think that's the best way to put it. It's going to cover the basic elements of simple landscape design, options to consider for maybe reducing the size of your lawn, giving maybe some ideas for some new landscape features, design tips, and then at the end, some examples of landscapes before and after. I think those are very important slides to see. And it also will stress on you the need for patience as the landscape grows out. In other words, the day you plant the landscape, it might look a little Spartan, a little sparse, but if you give it a year's time, 18 months time, it will have filled in and look really great. So first we'll start with the beginning, just the basic elements of a landscape design. So even if you're not going to redesign your whole yard, you're going to get some really good information out of this. And as Kieran mentioned, there are handouts. You can click on different slides. Some of the slides have not a lot of information on them, and they might be good to download onto your computer to review at a different time. Okay, next. Okay, so we're going to start with the elements that we would need to take in mind to do a successful design. And so we have to know what's going in, what's going on around the property, what are the opportunities and constraints. Constraints might be the actual physical size, might be block walls, might be existing buildings, okay? And step 2 is to make a plot plan, and that's very simple. We'll show you that. It's basically just drawing out, sketching out what your property looks like from above. And step 3, make a landscape design out of your plot plan. Next. So this is one of those slides that you may want to download or get it from the handout, because it's quite a long, extensive list of basic elements that you'll have to take into consideration before you redesign or re-landscape the yard. Okay, I'm not going to go over all these, but this is one of those slides that would probably benefit you to have downloaded or printed out. Okay, next. So now drawing a plot plan, it's actually very simple. By having something in front of you, drawn out, it'll be really easy to see just how much space you have, how much plant material you have, where the hardscape is. And from that point, you can figure out the cost and how long it should take you. Next, this is a real simple plot plan. Once again, it's a bird's eye view, and that big dark thing in the middle, that's the house and the garage. And the landscaped areas would be the areas surrounding. The hardscape is something that is already there, be it a block wall, a walkway, a driveway, okay? Those things will probably remain. The other thing, the next step that you might do is to draw in any landscape features that will remain. In other words, if there's a large tree that you're going to keep, draw that in because that's important to have. And of course, your north arrow. We want to know where the sun is coming, where the hot spots in the yard are. Obviously, the north side would be the coolest side, and south would be the hottest. And this is very simple. Just go out there with a tape measure and draw it in. But from this very basic hand-drawn design, we can move forward. Next. So we're going to use that plot plan. And you see there, it says to make copies. And that's always a good idea. Okay. You can draw in where your walkways are, where the patios are. If you're going to be designing new ones, this is a time to put it in. Uh, Usually you'll do that first. That'd be step one. Step two would be the plant material. And then on a whole other copy, you could draw in your irrigation system. The irrigation system and the plant material should be on a separate plot plan so it doesn't look too busy. Okay. And as we move on through this, especially when we see the slides at the end, uh, we will once again warn you not to overplant. Plants grow and they spread. So you might see designs where the plants are 4 feet apart and there's 3 feet in between them because the plants are only maybe a foot wide at the time, but they'll continue to grow. Next. So here's a very fancy professional plan drawn out by a landscape designer. And you don't need to do this, okay? This is just showing you what a professional would do and certainly charge quite a bit of money for because this is quite the design. And when they do draw in the plants, they draw in the plants at the size that the plants will be in anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And you see that this will show in hardscape, the driveway, garage, house, any lawn areas. The big circles with spokes in them, those are trees. And you can see that there are plants underneath the trees in some areas. And the tree, when you plant it, might only be 2 feet across, but in your design, it should show how big it is at anywhere from 3 to 5 years. Just to give you an idea if it's going to encroach on anything. But this is a very nice design. Yours doesn't have to be like this, and we'll show you that next. There's one that was done by a student. And it's very simple. In this case, they did both sides of the driveway and one side of the house. And the color coding, I always recommend that. In other words, the green, the very first thing you see there, the green that says M, that's the ground color, Maya Port. So they use that extensively throughout the property. And then Every color alludes to another plant. So this is excellent. You can do this very easily. You can see it's all hand drawn. There's nothing professional about this, but it works. They did measure everything, and measuring is very important. You can see that all of the dimensions are drawn in. They have some pathways drawn in. And in this case, they are using ground cover instead of the lawn. So this is excellent. This you can do. So this might be something that you may want to download. So you have an example of how you can do it very easily. Okay, next. So now we're going to talk about less grass. As you probably know, the turf lawn is the highest water user in the landscaping. It's also the most maintenance and produces the most green waste. We water our lawns a lot to keep them green. We have to mow them, fertilize them, and weed them. And every time we mow, we're producing green waste that has to go to the landfill. So if you want to keep a lawn, that's fine. Perhaps you could just reduce the size of it so that you're using less water and having less maintenance. And then perhaps you could turn some of those lawn areas into ornamental ground covers or planting beds, areas like that. But this particular slide just tells you how much water you're using when you have a lawn, how much waste there is, and how many hours of maintenance. So, good slide, good numbers. Next. Okay. So, if up to 70% of the water used by homeowners in Santa Clarita is for outdoor use, of that, 50 to 80% is just for the lawn. So without a lawn, as you can imagine, you could direct your water towards the planted areas, which simply there are very few plants. In fact, there are almost no plants that need to or want to be watered as often as the lawn does. For instance, trees with a big extensive root system can get along with watering every couple of weeks, maybe once a month. Most shrubs, once a week is more than enough. But as you well know, if you tried to water your lawn once a week in the summer, you would lose it. Next. So choosing where to remove a lawn, now that should be pretty simple. You see on this slide that he's got a very steep slope, impossible to maintain. This would be an obvious volunteer to remove lawn and use an alternative. Also narrow sections. On the left side of your slide, you see that little bit of grass, that narrow path there? Perhaps that could be very easily turned into a rose garden, vegetable garden, flower garden, almost anything other than lawn. And anytime your lawn has a steep slope in it, you're going to get brown spots. And you see the brown spots on this lawn. It's simply because the irrigation can't soak in very well. And this entire slide shows me an area that would be better suited without the lawn. Next. Here's another example. These narrow areas like this, areas underneath trees that are going to be shaded, areas where the roots are going to come up and make it difficult to mow and difficult to grow a lawn. I just don't think these areas in this slide should have lawn. Lots of wonderful alternatives for areas like this. Next. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about the hydro zones. As I mentioned, the lawn needs water more often, deeper watering, and the surrounding landscape areas need less. So if your lawn sprinklers are watering beyond the lawn, if they're watering the trees and shrubs, now that's very wasteful and can even be harmful to the trees and shrubs. If you're going to convert an area, make sure the entire zone, in other words, every sprinkler that is operated on that zone, make sure you convert that entire area. You wouldn't want to convert to drought tolerant gardening and then have a sprinkler that was watering the lawn on that particular design. So it is important to convert the entire zone to your new design. Okay? So it's not good to mix the lawn with the other plants. And if your sprinklers are already existing, then they may require a little bit of work, maybe different heads, different patterns, things of that nature. Okay, next. So these are the needs. What are your needs? Why do you want to do this landscaping change or design? You may have to think about what is the final plan? Do you want to have a colorful garden? Do you want plants that smell nice? Do you like the different textures? Do you want to make it an edible landscape? Then decide how much turf you actually need. Uh, can you design something that retains some turf that gives you more outdoor room? And then consider things like lighting, perhaps a water feature, and always, of course, consider the budget. Next. So here's some examples of where they have redesigned the yard for colorful reasons, for outdoor living. Up in the right-hand corner, for bench, stepping stones, and this looks like a wonderful area to sit and read a book. And in the lower right-hand corner, you see where they've turned the yard into kind of a fun area. So, train running through it, and boulders and plants. Very nice. So you can do all of the things mentioned on here, and this might be another one of those handouts that you download, because these are just a few options of what you can do. Raised beds, vegetable gardens, herb garden, and fruit trees. Just, it's endless what you can do. Next. Okay, so now to choose the plants for your new design, a couple things to remember. One is the general weather that we have here in the SCV. And obviously, this year especially, and actually it seems to be getting worse, we seem to be getting more wind than ever before. Certainly I've lived here my whole life, and these last 2 years have been the windiest that I can ever remember. So things are changing. The wind is worse. The heat is getting worse. The sun is very intense. Humidity is less. Getting more days of 100 degrees plus, and it's lasting longer. This October, we had several days over 100 degrees in October. So uh, just keep that in mind. I don't think things are going to change from this particular pattern that we're on right now. And we do get an occasional cold winter with some frost. We have to keep that in mind. Our soils, usually very heavy soils, heavily compacted, typically from building. There are codes, etc., that require that the ground be compacted. On the plus side, we do seem to have pretty good water quality, low salt. So that does work in our favor. Next. Now this book, the Sunset Western Garden book, is no longer in print, but you may be able to find one at a bookstore, a used bookstore, maybe online. Garage sales are excellent places to find them. And this book will help you dramatically. It has every plant in it that we would grow here. It'll tell you the full size of the plant, which is excellent when you're doing your design. It says a plant to get 5 feet across. That will help you know where to put it. It'll also tell you about the microclimates. And we are zone 18 in the Western Garden Book. Okay? So wonderful resource, strongly recommended. Next. The soils, as we mentioned, they're heavy soils. They're hard to work in. There are some areas around here like Placerita Canyon, Sand Canyon, the bottoms, maybe Saco Canyon, the bottoms of some of the canyons would have a sandy, well-drained soil. Some of the older parts of Newhall have very good soil. Some parts of Valencia, though, have heavy amounts of clay. Water tends to puddle, build up. We get root rots. So when dealing with the clay soil, remember, the clay soils will hold the water longer than a sandy soil. So we can water less often and also feed less often. Clay soils tend to hold on to water and food longer than sandy soils. So the big challenge there is controlling the water, watering less often and watering deeper. Next. So plant spacing, like I said, it's important to know every single plant you're putting in your landscape. You want to know the size at maturity. How wide, how high, what is the effect? What effect do you want from this plant? How soon do you need it to fill in? And if it's ground cover, it's going to help with erosion. And how much maintenance? Next. And I might mention the Sunset Western Garden book will help you with all of those answers there. One of the main features in a landscape design would be the trees. And there's a lot of benefits to having trees. The shade, increased property value, more oxygen they put in the air. So trees are very important. But consider where you're putting them. Consider the maintenance of them, like pruning and cleanup of the leaves. Also consider whether they have a large root system. Big trees can do damage. The roots can lift sidewalks, break driveways. So look up your trees, make sure that they are good trees. And I think that we actually do a class later on in the year on nothing but trees. So I would definitely suggest you tune into that class. Next. And something we certainly have to think about here in Santa Clarita, last 5 years, 6 years, uh, there have just been fires everywhere, uh, every year. As we get hotter and drier, you can anticipate that the fire season will last longer. And so everything we plant, we should consider the flammability. There are some plants that are more of a risk than others. There are some trees, palm trees, pine trees, pepper trees, that have a lot of fuel and they burn. So we should probably avoid trees like that. I would probably never recommend planting a pine or a pepper tree or a eucalyptus tree or palm. Certainly no palms near the house. And the fire department will give you a list of plants that are recommended and not recommended in a fire zone. Next. There we go. Okay. So now we're going to look at some elements of a good design. Uh, the the sustainability is very important. In other words, can we maintain this? Will it save us the water that we need? Will it look pretty? And I think on this particular slide, I'd say yes. These are all very drought tolerant plants. Would not need to be watered more than once a week in the summer, and much less often than that the rest of the year. Next. So here's a few excellent design tips. Once again, something you may want to print out of the handouts. Okay, and it's pretty basic. You want to plant your taller plants towards the back, the lower plants in front. Don't block your sprinklers, and plant in odd numbers, threes, fives, sevens. The only exception to that would be if you're planting something on both sides of the garage or both sides of the front door, then you can use two. But typically, the odd numbers are the way to do it. And in smaller areas, use plants with nice textures. Yes, this is a design where they've used darker colored plants, purples and reds towards the back. And as we come forward, there's grays and yellows. Very nice design here. Next. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at some before and after slides. I think this is these next few slides are invaluable. It gives you an idea of what it can look like before and after. And in this particular slide, we have the landscape design. And this is the before. The design is on the right-hand side. And they're going to use artificial turf right alongside that boat back there, because that's an impossible area to try to mow or maintain. And then the rest of the area is going to be landscape. So when we flip to the next slide, we'll see what that looks like. Next. There we go. So you can see the little bit of artificial turf they used on the left side there. They've used mulch around the plants, and that's a great idea because, as we mentioned before, the plants aren't full grown. Put them in, they're going to grow and fill in, and they need room to grow. And this is all being watered with drip irrigation, so you don't have to have any sprinklers in there. And much easier to maintain. So the before and after on this are pretty extraordinary. Next, here's another one. Here this is their before shot, and you see their landscape plan, what they plan on doing. It's a corner lot, so there are challenges with that, but they've got their design in plan. And let's go ahead and go to the next slide and see what happens. Next. There we go. So you can see they've taken out all the grass. They've even taken out all of the original landscaping. And they've used DG and a few drought-tolerant shrubs with underground watering. Could we go back one slide? Nope. Nope. We're going the wrong direction. Nope. Yes, very good. Okay, so this is what it looked like before. Just to refresh your memories. Not much to talk about there, is it? And now let's see the next slide to see what it looks like after. There you go. And you can see much more interesting, just a whole new yard. Okay, next. Here's another one. Just grass, pretty boring, and not a very good looking lawn at all. And then they hand drawn a little design. Looks like they want to use stones, stepping stones, and some drought tolerant plants. That design would work. And as you can see, it's all done by hand. Nothing professional about this, but it'll probably work. Let's see. Let's look at the next slide. Okay, so this is immediately afterwards. So instead of stepping stones, they went to blocks. They used a lot of mulch, and this is immediately after planting. Now let's take a look at the next slide. This is 1 year later as the plants have filled out. And you can see what was just a dull, not very attractive lawn is now turned into a very pretty yard. And each of these plants will grow and provide enjoyment for the homeowners. And once again, much less maintenance, much less water, no waste going to the landfills. It's very nice. Next. So here's our before, and they've got a landscape design there, a plan. And this has nothing but grass in the front yard and a few shrubs. It looks like one tree back there near the gate. Okay, next. And what a difference. What a difference. Immediately afterwards, you see they did keep the tree in the back and they did keep those few shrubs, but everything else is gone. And then to the right of the screen, this is after just 8 months. After 8 months, these plants have filled in nicely, and the yard looks completely revitalized. It's very nice, quite a difference. So, like I said, the day after you plant, it's not going to look like much. It looks nice, but after they fill in, then you have your final design. Next. Oh, that was the end of it. Okay.
All right. Okay, everybody. All right, so that was the class. Now I'm going to open up the chat box. Okay, we have one question. Okay, John mentioned zone 18 for SCV is in the Sunset Western Garden book, but at the
Yes.
bottom of Sand Canyon, we seem to get colder and hotter winds. Should we look at a different zone?
No, Zone 18 encompasses a very wide area from Agua Dulce uh, north to Castaic. There's quite a bit of difference in that zone, but the plants that are zoned for 18 should grow just about everywhere. The thing we didn't mention is that the United States Department of Agriculture has their own weather zone map. And we're generally considered zone 9. If you feel that you live in an area that has more severe microclimate, you may want to choose plants that are hardy enough for USDA zone 8. 8 would include um, all the way to Acton, all the way to the top of Sand Canyon. So if you consider zone 8 with the US Department of Agriculture, it expands a little bit more than just the zone 9. Next.
Okay, we got a couple more questions came up. Erica would like to know, what is drip irrigation and what is deep watering?
Okay. Drip irrigation is using a system of tubes to move the water from your water source to the individual plant. Instead of having a standard sprinkler system where water is shot out over a large area, the water is directed right to the root zone of individual plants. What was the second part of that question?
What is deep watering?
Deep watering is a thorough watering to get the entire root system wet. Uh, as plants grow bigger, they will have a larger, more extensive root system that actually require more water. This can often be done by adding another dripper with this drip irrigation system that was installed at the time of planting. As the plants mature, the roots will grow out further, and perhaps you need to add another dripper to get the water down deeply. The drippers are measured in gallons per hour. So if you ran a drip system for 1 hour, you would get 1 gallon to each of the plants. If your plants are large plants, you want 4 emitters around them to get anywhere from 2 gallons to 4 gallons around each plant each time they're watered. Okay.
All right, we've got some more questions have popped up. So Mary would like to know, I have a lot of Bermuda grass. It's mixed in with other grass that I would like to remove. It's on a slope. How do I keep Bermuda grass from coming up around the sustainable plants?
There is a product called Grass Begone that will only kill grasses, not shrubs or trees. So grasses coming up amongst your plants can be controlled using that product. When Bermuda grass comes up in your lawn, there are specific herbicides that can control the Bermuda grass without harming your existing lawn.
All right, next question. Why is it recommended to plant in odd numbers?
Aesthetics. You can put 3 plants next to each other and they'll fill in nicely and make a circle. Putting 2 plants next to each other doesn't make a circle. That's why aesthetically it works out better for the final design.
Okay, and then we have a gentleman asking about our rebates. Let's see. Okay, Russell wants to know, how do I go about getting the $750 rebate? Okay, Russell, this is go on to this. I'm going to give you the website to go on to. It's our website for rebates. It is conserve, CONSERVE dot your scvwater.com. Conserve.yourscvwater.com. And the one that I spoke about today that you get up to up to $750 back, it's the HELP, HELP, which is Healthy and Efficient Landscape Programs. So if you go onto that site, you can see all of our rebates, and then you can learn more. And if you have any questions, it will give you the name of someone that you can call in our office, or email them and get some more information and answer any questions that you may have. But that's the site, one of our sites that you can go to get our rebates. Thank you. Next one is, Kathy would like to know, is it possible to have different types of soil on one piece of property? I feel like some parts of my yard have sandy soil and other areas have more clay-like soil.
Yes, it's absolutely possible, and I've seen it many times. The backyard can have different soil than the front yard. It's because keep in mind that we have hills and valleys here, and when they put the homes in, they do what's called cut and fill. And they cut to level it out, they scoop the soil away. So your backyard could be on a cut, which would be very hard soil, cut right into a mountain. And the front yard could be fill, where they filled it up to bring it up to a level. So yes, I have seen that from time to time. And yes, it's good. It's good to be aware of that. And yes, it does exist, and more frequently than most people might think. So yes, even the drainage in the front yard can be different than the drainage in the backyard due to this cut and fill that many of us live on. Not much can be done about it, but be aware of it. Okay.
Next question, are pomegranate trees a fire hazard?
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, almost no edible tree or shrub or plant is flammable, and some, like the pomegranate, are very easy to grow. They're drought tolerant. They love the sun and the heat. They would be an excellent edible plant to put in almost any landscape in a hot, dry, sunny area.
All right, let's see, John, do you know of a soil amendment that someone can use? They live in Castaic on Hillcrest Parkway, that area of town.
Yeah, depending what you're planting, there's lots of good amendments. And for instance, if you're planting something like a vegetable garden, well, they make specific amendments for that. One that I'm familiar with called Harvest Supreme. It's excellent for planting vegetables. If you're planting a lemon tree or a lime tree, citrus of any sort, they make mixes designed specifically for citrus, designed mixes designed specifically for palm trees, uh, even for roses and flowers. There's a specific mix for that. So I would say that would depend upon what you're planting as to which particular amendment I would recommend.
All right, next question is, we have a large grass area that isn't doing well. We'd like to replace with drought-tolerant plants. How do we kill the grass or avoid having it poking through the new landscaping? Is it necessary to turn off sprinklers for a long period of time before starting on the new? We have a large poplar tree in the middle. Thank you.
Ooh. Well, the poplar tree, that's on the bad tree list. You may want to consider getting rid of that. And your lawn can be killed with herbicides. There's a bunch of herbicides on the market that will kill your lawn. just turning off the sprinklers isn't the best way to eliminate a lawn because we could get some rain. Some of the roots may remain intact. In fact, one of the best ways to kill weeds or a lawn or anything you want is to actually feed it in water, get it to grow actively, and then spray it. Because weeds, lawns, everything is easier to kill when it's actively growing. It can actually absorb the herbicide much better. So no, I wouldn't turn off the sprinklers prior to eliminating a lawn. I might feed the lawn, water it real well, get it to look nice, then turn off the sprinklers, then spray it and kill it.
Okay, I just now saw that she has a second question under it. I don't want to use harsh chemicals.
That's fine.
Okay.
There's these days, I'll bet over the Green Thumb Nursery, I bet they have at least 10 alternatives to chemical herbicides. They have things, uh, herbicides that are made out of clove oils, out of citric acid, out of soaps, uh, vinegars. There's these days there are many alternatives to quote unquote harsh chemicals.
Okay, I do want to say one thing though. If any of you do want to replace your lawn, get rid of your green grass and put in things that we just saw in the presentation. We do have a lawn replacement program, but your lawn must be living, so your grass must be alive in order to qualify for the lawn replacement program. So if you want to look at doing a lawn replacement and get rid of your green grass and put it with other hardscape, drought tolerance, all that kind of stuff, we do have some information on our site, and it is sorry, one second. So you would go on to the same site that I said a few minutes ago, conserve.yourscvwater.com. conserve.yourscvwater.com, and you can look at the information about our lawn replacement program and see if that is something that you would like to learn more about, and maybe that's something you want to tackle. All right, so next question. What are the most acidic trees, and what does that do to the plants beneath their shade?
Well, pine tree. That's probably the number one. Pine, perhaps cedars, redwoods. It does over time acidify the soil, but that's usually not the reason why plants don't do well underneath. It's usually from the rather aggressive and thick root system underneath these plants and from the droppings, the pine needles, uh, the droppings from the redwood trees, the leaves that fall, the needles. This is the main reason why it's difficult to grow underneath uh, evergreens, pines especially. Not so much the acidity. Most plants can deal with a little bit of that, but the incredible root system underneath pines and constant dropping of the needles, the shade, uh, those are really the culprits. If it was just simply as simple as acidifying the soil, most plants could deal with that. And then there's also lime. You could broadcast lime underneath the trees to combat the acidity if that was an issue. But usually pines are the worst culprit, and I have little trouble recommending anybody to plant a new pine tree if you already have it, it's existing, and you don't want to cut it down. Uh, then, well, you you've already learned the problems of having that tree then. Okay, next.
Okay, so her question about the acidic trees, she wrote, she has a pepper tree. So I think
Okay.
that's what she was wondering if pepper trees are.
Pepper trees are a nuisance. They are actually on the UC Davis weed tree list now. They crowd out other plants, they crowd out native plants. And it's not so much the acidity, it's what I believe they call an idiopathic chemical that the plant exudes through its roots, through the berries that fall from it, and from the leaves. This prevents plant growth. If you have pepper trees, um, that's what you have. You don't have much of anything else. Because where the plants come from, down in South America, the way they survive, the way they've evolved, is to prevent other plant growth around them so that they could take care of themselves by using up all of the nutrients and all of the water. So the pepper tree would be the bane of any gardener's existence. If you want to have a nice garden or a nice yard, you can't have a pepper tree. So you have to decide, do you want a pepper tree or do you want a nice yard? You can't have them. It's just a fact. Okay.
Right. Actually, we had a pepper tree in our backyard, and we finally got rid of it. No
Ah,
grass, nothing grew under it.
nothing.
Yeah, it kind of went under the house. What is that, John? Yeah. What?
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh
it
yeah,
was.
they
Yeah,
get
it was.
in,
It
they
was
get
awful.
into drainage, they get into the sewer lines, the septic lines, they
Yep.
destroy the sprinklers. Yeah, there's just nothing good I can say about the tree, except that if I had to say something good about it, I would say it's practically indestructible.
It's
But
pretty. I
that's
like
okay.
looking at them, but yeah, we had ours over 20 years, and it did a number on the yard. So. Okay, next question is, do you recommend us removing palm trees due to fire hazards?
If they're next to the house, yes, I believe the fire department would want you to do that. Uh, Palm trees tend to burn like a torch. The flames run right up the stalk all the way to the top. And sometimes if the palm trees are planted close to the eaves or close to the house, it will catch the fascia board on fire. Um, yeah, uh, if you're in a fire area, palms are not your friend.
All right, next is a statement. Kathy said, thank you for this helpful information. I'm looking forward to using the steps you taught us to reduce the areas of my lawn. The before and after photos are great inspiration.
Yes, yes, I happen to like those before and after slides a lot. Mhm.
Okay, next one is, why is a poplar a bad tree?
Oh, goodness, goodness. I, I'm trying to think if there's anything positive I can say about a poplar tree. I've been an arborist, a tree doctor, for over 25 years. I see and look and diagnose problems with trees every day of my life for the last 25 years. If you could think of something negative that might exist with a tree, you would find that in a poplar. Insects. Insects love poplars. So maybe if you wanted to have a lot of bad insects in your yard, poplar would be the good tree to have. They are also a very weak wood tree. Weak wood means that the branches break readily. You can't even use it for burning. It's almost like balsa wood in the middle. So you can't use them for firewood. Um, they have the most aggressive root system of any plant in the world. The roots oftentimes spread 3 or 4 times beyond what they call the drip line of the tree. So the roots get into everything and they break everything: block walls, driveways, sidewalks, sprinkler systems, drainage systems. Ah, boy, yeah, poplars are actually the number one. There's a list of the 10 worst trees for Southern California. I believe poplars are number one. I believe they with like weeping willows number two. Uh, yeah, just the reason to have a poplar in the yard. It will cause you a lot of difficulties over the years. Okay, and I love trees, but not poplar.
All right, next question is actually for me. Randy, you want to know if rebates include the Acton area. The rebates are only for people in our service area. So I'm not sure where you are in Acton, but I don't believe we go into the Acton area. But if you pay your water bill to SCV Water, then you are able to get a rebate, but you must be in our water service area. So it's the city of Santa Clarita and the LA County areas outline the Santa Clarita area. As long as you pay your bill to SCV Water, then you are eligible for the rebates. So sorry about that, Randy. Let's see. What edible plants do you recommend for this area? Okay, hold on. Oh yeah. What edible plants do you recommend for this area?
Oh yeah. Uh, well, a couple of easy ones would be the pomegranate and the pineapple guava. Those are wonderful landscape plants that are edible. And herbs. There are a number of herbs that make beautiful landscape plants. So you'd be surprised. It's the rosemary, lavender, sages, oregano, marjoram, thyme. Thyme makes a wonderful ground cover. So the whole herb family makes wonderful landscape plants. Just make sure it's a perennial, like the ones I just mentioned. Annual, like cilantro and basil, those wouldn't be considered a landscape plant. And as far as fruit trees, the ones to avoid would be trees that need high chill factors, like cherries. Cherries need a lot of cold weather. We don't get enough cold weather anymore. Our weather has gotten warmer and warmer and warmer every year. Even apricots won't grow well here anymore, whereas they did 30 years ago. So just if you want fruit trees, the two words, remember, write these down: low, chill. And any nursery center will know what that means for choosing fruit trees.
Okay, and someone just popped up and wanted to say, aren't some of those herbs highly flammable like sage?
The native sages are, but the sage that we use for cooking is called Salvia officinalis. I don't see a problem with that. There's also the salvia family, huge family. So the red autumn sage, beautiful plant, very drought tolerant. The hummingbirds love it, not a problem at all. So the only sage I might tell you not to would be the native black sage. But all the others are beautiful plants and not an issue at all.
All right, we're back to the pepper tree. She said it has been here since the house was built in 1966. Will it die soon? LOL.
If you help it along its way, you could perhaps drill a few holes in the trunk and pour in a powerful herbicide to help it on its way. Kind of a euthanasia for trees, as it were. Otherwise, man, I've seen those trees. Like I've seen some old ones in the San Fernando Valley that were 120 years old. They're falling apart and causing all kinds of problems, but they're over 100 years old. I don't think you want to wait another 40 years for your tree to die naturally. Why don't you help it along?
Okay, let's see. Oh, did you answer the question about zones for the Sand Canyon area? I think she must have missed your answer. That was the first question we had.
Yeah. When you look up Zone 18, Sand Canyon would have the extremes of that. In other words, Zone 18 has lows that could probably be lower than we might get in Valencia. And it's all about everybody, every place gets hot. It's all about, if you're in an area of San Canyon and it's a little colder than Valencia, yeah, you probably are, but you're still in zone 18.
Okay, can you recommend a good vine to cover a wall? I wouldn't mind one with thorns for security reasons.
Oh, well, pyracantha is green all year, grows relatively quickly, has thorns, has flowers, and berries that the birds might like. Okay, my battery's about to die on my computer, but I think we're okay for a minute. What'll happen, if the battery dies, you may not be able to hear me again because I think, or I won't be able to hear you because I'm talking to the computer.
Right, if your battery dies, then you're out.
I'll still be alive. But,
Yes, you will. You'll be alive, but unable to communicate. And Michael, you said that you're hearing the feedback from John from the microphone. John's actually using a laptop and his desktop at the same time because he was unable to get his sound on his desktop, so he's using the laptop. So at times there is some feedback, but thank you for that. Okay, couple of more quick questions before we lose you, John. What is the best tree to plant on a steep hill to help retain the soil in the surrounding area?
Why don't you take that person's email and forward it to me,
The tree?
and
Okay.
I'll forward him a list, okay?
Okay, all right. Let's see. Okay, that's Hannah. So Hannah, I will send your email address to John, and or I'll get from him a list of trees on a steep slope, and I'll get back to you with the information. Okay. Steep hill. Okay, let's see. One last question, Nikki. I have a large area of grass that kids play ball on. Is there another ground cover that could be used instead that uses less water?
Not as a direct alternative to lawns. Lawns are great playing on, and when my kids were young and playing outside, I had a nice lawn for them to play on. It was only when they got older and weren't playing on the lawn that I eliminated the lawn. So no ground cover is the perfect alternative for a lawn that is played on, soccer, things of that nature. It just isn't quite that nice.
Okay, couple of comments. A couple people are appreciating the sessions that we have and the presentations, so thank you. Okay, Sandy would also like the information on trees on a steep slope. So John, I've got her name and number. I will, her email. I'll connect you. All right, looks like that's it. Looks like we've got a lot of thank yous. And thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate you coming in with us and learning and being patient with, we're still fairly new at this online stuff. So anyways, we appreciate you staying with us. And we look forward to you joining us next month on April 3rd to learn about water-wise vegetable gardening. So anyways, thank you everybody, and have a great weekend. Thank you.
Remind them if they have, Karen, remind them if they have any other questions to email you, and then you'll email it to me. And all the questions will get it.
Yep.
Okay.
So if anybody has any questions, please send me an email and I will connect with John, get the answers, and then I'll reply back to you. And also, if you need the notes for the class from today, please email me. Again, in case you're past all the slides and you need my email, KDENKINGR@scvwa.org. SCVWA stands for Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency. And again, my name, KDENKINGER All right. Thank you all, and thanks for joining us. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.